hello everyone. I'm sure at this point you're expecting a skit for the episode, but with some recent news, Robin and I and Star as well, we all felt that it's the best thing to start this episode with, based on genuinely news that's just come out this afternoon, is to basically give a massive tribute and a massive rest in peace to the legend that is William Russel, who we all in the fandom will know for playing Ian Chesterton, the first Doctor's companion, the first companion along with Barbara and Susan, very much like the blueprint for what has become a companion now. So much so that I'd say Ian is probably one of the most important characters in the entire pantheon of the show, because both his influence along with Barbara as well influence and make the Doctor the character that we know and we love today. The Doctor, they aren't who they are now without learning from Ian and learning from Barbara. And William Russell is, was one of the first companions I ever saw, because I saw, some of the Hartnell stuff before I got into stuff properly. And I always had this sort of great connection to Ian, and I think he stands the time as one of the greatest companions of all time. And it's really great to see how William still had this affinity and love for Doctor Who and respected it, coming back to do so many reconstructions and things, doing little, asides here and there whilst going over episodes and narrating them as well, doing stuff at Big Finish and having a little cameo in Adventure in Space of Time, which is great. And also, most recently, appearing in Power of the Doctor, allowing us to touch back to Doctor Who's beginning at what was the latest episode and what, many people working on the episode thought was the end of Doctor Who as well. So I think it's only appropriate that we say here, thank you, William Russell. We hope you rest in peace, and we will look to the stars and think of you. So, thank you. Hello and welcome to an awful lot of running a Doctor Who podcast.
Woo!
Yeah, there it is. There's the traditional woo. I am Jack, one part of the hosting team, and join me as always, the Ricky September to my Lindsay Pepper Bean. It's published over Robin Foale. How you doing, Robin?
Are we sure we want to go for any of the human characters in this?
I know. I've got better. Let's rebound. Let's go back. The man trap to my dot. There, that works because the dot is fine. The dot's the good guy. The dot is the good guy. The man traps are the good guys. The fucking slugs are good. It's probably short for Robin Foale.
I would have also accepted Lamppost, that's also another hero of the story.
But... Okay, the lamppost are my man traps. I'm a slug, you're a lamppost. The two MVPs of the episode, let's face it.
Fucking hell. Yep. That's some bad art for you. Hey everyone, yep, I am Robin, published author as we said, and oh god damn, the insanity has already started. What the hell are we talking about again?
Today we are reviewing the most recent episode of Doctor Who, written by Rusty Davis. He's returned again. Funny enough, he's writing another episode of season 1. We're talking about Dot and Bubble, Robin, which is yet another Doctor Light episode, but this time also a companion light. We follow a different character entirely. We have a different protagonist for this episode. We have a different lead for the show, and it's
very, very interesting because when we were doing our predictions, I
How
thought
you said it.
73 yard. Oh, damn it. Yep. Gonna have to take my drink now.
Drink
Start the counter.
responsibly.
Oh, yeah, drink responsibly. Yes, when we were first discussing like our thoughts about what we thought the season was going to hold, I thought 73 yards was going to be the doctor companion light story with someone else as the kind of lead if there was going to be one. And it's kind of surprising to have such a story when it is only an 8 episode series.
Mm,
But I definitely think that the choice of who we focus on is very interesting, um, considering the type of story that this
mm.
tells. I know we're jumping ahead a bit, but yeah.
No, no, it's a very interesting one because it's the same block as 73 yards. It's the same director here doing this, and absolutely it's a beautiful looking episode. It's really well shot. I think it's a very good episode. I'm trying to find a way to say that I enjoyed the episode without it's because I don't think that enjoyed is the right term to use for it, really. Like, I feel like Dot and Bubble is it's not one just to be enjoyed like that. It's something like 73 yards to get you thinking, but in a very different way entirely.
Mm.
And
It's
I
thought
suppose,
provoking.
yeah, I would. It's funny enough. It's a bit like, and we spoke about this last week as well. It's Joe Collinson, the executive producer, was saying that how they looked at this series as if it was like an anthology series. And I've been saying for years I've wanted a Doctor Who anthology series. I look at Black Mirror and Love, Death and Robots and that sort of stuff. These
Mm.
two episodes very much feel like a little like a duology, if you will, in the terms that they both feel like little short films, like 73 yards, like a horror short film, but they both feel very akin to like Black Mirror episodes, basically, for
Mm.
lack of a better term, you know?
They really do. And again, each one is very strongly themed in, let's face it, Russell T Davies, he's always writing about current themes and issues. Like, that is the man's bread and butter. And when he writes it well, he writes it really damn well.
Mhm.
And I think this episode, upon watching it twice now, I think a lot of the themes become a lot more apparent and they become a lot more obvious on that second watch, which improves the narrative on a lot of levels. It's like one
Mm.
of those stories where you go back and watch it, you pick up on things you didn't before, little subtleties or things in the background.
See, but
And
that's the
then,
thing. I think as, and I'm going to say it now. I think we're very. I'm going to acknowledge our privilege straight away for this now that we are
mm,
both straight away. We're both white men, Robin.
mm,
You know, so I feel like as if I'm. I definitely picked up on the microaggressions in this. I definitely
mm,
picked up on them, and sort of like the twist at the end, which isn't a twist really if you're paying attention and noticing it.
mm.
But let's say there's the twist is racism. But the
Yes.
twist is that Fine Time and these rich kids that have been sent there are racist, and it's I will say I did pick up on it before the end because I did think that this is a bit weird, but I would probably say that I am ashamed that how long it took me to pick up on it.
I'm glad you said that first because I also didn't pick up on that, but I also have to address in this review that I have struggled a bit watching this episode, not in terms of the episode's quality in itself, God no,
Mhm.
but rather just my own personal difficulties, which we can come up. I can explain more when we sort of go through the episodes bit by bit. I know that's leaving it a bit vague, but
Mhm.
I just want the listeners to know that some of my enjoyment or some of my understanding of the episode I had to pick up on and appreciate more in a second watching, just based on some like health reasons of mine.
Hmm.
But again, we'll discuss that in a moment.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important to say that, and it is definitely, it's like you were saying before. If you even if you don't pick up on it at the start, and I'll be honest, I've seen some people not pick up on it and then still not understand it post episode, despite the
Mm,
fact it's very blatant, it's very clear what's happening. And if you watch Unleashed afterwards as well, the first thing they do in the Unleashed episode, I have to give them credit, they unpack that final scene. They unpack that, which is, I'd really recommend going to watch it, Robin. I would, because it's really interesting. And
mm,
I have to say, thank God they do. And they just go, right, okay, this is it. And they give you the clear cut, their thoughts and reasons behind it. And because we're jumping way ahead, but it is, and even Russell said as well, writing this, was that that's going to be the big thing that people come out of this episode talking about, is that very last scene, because it is, whereas it's been microaggressions all the way through, the racism in that scene which the Doctor faces is so overt, it's
yeah.
so clear. And I know we'll get to that later on, but it's really, it's disgusting is what it is. Absolutely,
It's
it's,
it's
yeah.
absolutely appalling, and it was very interesting to watch that episode as well with my fiance.
Mhm.
She's Filipino, and when she watched the ending, like she felt that disgust, and she's unfortunately has had that in her life, and it's horrible. And she like really like took that as like they wrote it really well. It's like she definitely got a different viewpoint to it than I could ever. And for her as well to like just, it was just really interesting to hear her viewpoint, and to just as well see how she just really thought, yo, the Doctor in that moment being the best man he possibly be, which we will get to. Oh
Yeah,
boy, because that's just a whole kind of oh, just the whole scene. Like
yeah.
again, shall we maybe rewind and
I
go
suppose
to
I
the
suppose what I
start?
will just say, just to cap that off there, is that
Oh yeah.
I have my own opinion and my own thoughts in the episode. I couldn't say that I enjoyed it. I thought it was a stellar piece of television. Genuinely, I thought it
Mm,
was great in terms of pushing the bar and making experimental and interesting Doctor Who, which is what I want. But then I had to make sure I went and listened to people of color. And like yourself, Robin, I know it was very important for you that you heard, if you, Christine's, perspective on it. I went and I made sure I looked and I understood as well people's, persons of color and what they thought of the episode, and that's really helped me sort of understand it as well. Because I'm going to be honest, as a white man, I I have no stance to say what is. I can say that I believe something is racist, but I can never understand racism the way that, you know, people of color and from different backgrounds do experience, whether it be every day, whether it be microaggressions like this. And so it was really, really important, I felt, to go and listen to their voices first before
mm.
doing anything else and really speaking about the episode. So I'm glad that that's done. And I'm sure, people listen to this episode now will know a lot of people in the fandom who, who have better thoughts on the episode than myself, obviously. And, and are, again, people of color, which can speak about it properly from their perspective. Because, again, as a white man, and yourself as a white man, our perspective on it in terms of that way, other than just absolutely saying it's deplorable, our our perspective doesn't matter. You have to
No,
listen to those voices. So
I
yeah, that's
I
let's
think that
cap that there.
had to be
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
Mhm.
It that had to be addressed. And I think some of the things we'll never be able to truly hit the nail on the head when we discuss them based on
Mhm.
that. But yeah, we had to bring that up first and foremost before we properly delved into the episode.
Here. Yeah, yeah. So this week, we don't follow the Doctor and Ruby. They're there. They're in the episode, and we see them pop up here and there within the bubble. But we actually follow Callie Cook's Lindy Pepperbean, who is the protagonist of this episode. And when we first meet her, and she's in bed, and she's at Dot Bubble, and she sees all their friends and what have you, I was thinking, okay, interesting. This is okay. It's very obviously a commentary in social media. It's very much a, you're saying the quiet part out loud, Russell. You've literally got them in a bubble that they can't even notice people being killed next to them because they're so focused on this, and I think the episode does a very good it has very good social commentary in terms of the racism, I feel, but it's also, I don't feel like it's, even though it's an episode written by a 60-year-old man, I don't feel that the element of these kids and their phones, which it
Yeah.
is whether you like it.
It
I
is.
don't think it's so, I don't think it's so overtly, oh, this is terrible, as the racism itself. It's more just a commentary on this is what, this could be where we're going,
Yeah.
and I think it's a credit to Russell that it doesn't feel overly preachy in its its portrayal of this world and this concept of the dot and bubble. But still, what I will say is Callie Cook as Lindy gives an amazing performance in this episode.
She is wonderful, and whatever grievances you have against the character, don't take it out on the actress. I've seen so many shitty posts targeting her, being like, "You're such an awful person. How could you do this?" And you just think,
wait, have you
she's an
actually?
actress. Yeah, I've
What?
literally seen people
Oh,
on
God
Twitter
almighty.
doing that. I know. It's people who are idiots thinking, "Oh, she played this character, therefore she's an awful person in real life." And it's like, she's acting. She is an
Yeah.
incredible
Do you
actress.
know what I always think of? Game of Thrones,
Yes,
Robin.
that's exactly
Joff-
my point.
Joffrey, okay?
Mm,
Joffrey, who is it's sort of like the first real douchebag that we meet. Douchebag doesn't even
mm.
cover how much of a
Oh
terrible,
God, no.
disgusting character Joffrey is. And the actor who played him, I'm going to double check now. I believe it was Jack. I believe it's called Jack. Was it Jack Gleason? I want to say it's Jack Gleason, is it? Yeah, Jack Gleason.
Yay.
Okay. He did such a good job and we know he did such a good job because George R. Martin sent him a letter saying, "Everybody hates you. Well done." You've done the job, and that's the same thing with I saw so many people go into this episode like simping for Lindy. Genuinely, I saw so
Oh,
many people being
yeah.
like, one of the friends of the show even changed their like Twitter handle to include Bean in it because they were like, oh, Lindy is kind of,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then how
Oh.
quickly that username got changed upon watching the episode. Because Lindy is absolutely representing, and the issue is as well is that she's not the only one representing this, but she is not only a disgustingly horrible person, she is vapid, she is vain, she is just portraying this absolutely terrible character,
Mm.
but is our protagonist for this episode. And it's just the way we unpick and reveal more and more and more about how terrible she really is to, when it really caps off when what happens with Ricky September.
Oh God, yeah. Like, and it's sort of peel back behind the curtain, as it were. But like back when we were thinking, like, oh, what could we do for the poster for this episode, the skit for this episode? And we were just like, oh, let's have members of our friends and community be like the people inside the bubble, and we'll have two bubbles around our heads. We'll be all sort of smiling and think, like doing like a little skit being like, oh yeah, it's us in the dot and bubble, all happy. And then the episode came out and we are like, oh well, we're gonna abort that plan. Nope.
Yeah, no,
Just
literally.
nope.
Star and I were talking about it, and she just went, "Yeah, abort, zero,
Abort.
no, no, back out, no skit, no skit, we can't, no." And we did, and we had ideas that floated around that which very much made clear that the whole world of Fine Time and the whole society was fucking disgusting. And I'll
Mm.
say it now: go slugs. Woo! Go slugs. Go slugs. Eat the rich. Eat the
Eat the
rich,
witch.
slugs. Eat the rich. Absolutely love it. You know, this, let's face it. Do you know what's really annoying, Robin? Do you know what's
What's
really,
that?
really, really, really annoying? The TARDIS wiki lists the man traps as the main villain of the episode. No, 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 no.
No.
The people of Fine Time are the villains. They are the villains.
They, they really are the villains. Like, oh my God. I mean, that's in itself is something to discuss later. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful actress as our lead who portrays this awful character so wickedly perfectly. And when all her friends get introduced and she's talking to them in the dot and bubble, not gonna lie, I think my recent sort of Friday the 13th influence just maybe instantly be like, and I want all these people to die. I just really, really hated them all so quickly. I was just like, oh boy, I cannot wait for them all to die horrible, like slasher deaths, just something like that.
Do you know what? It's really funny. When we first saw the clip, it was just like it's just that first bit of her in her bubble about to brush her teeth, talking to her friend, and it pops up with the little video of Ricky September, and I instantly went, "Well, I hate this fucker." Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
and then it
I
turns
did the
like,
same.
I was like, well, I hate Ricky September. I know that much. And then obviously we get our first moment of microaggression with Lindy there.
Mm,
The doctor pops up an unsolicited request. What does she do straight away? Blocks him. Just goes,
mm.
and she has like a grimace on her face. She's like, ugh, and she blocks, you know? Whereas when Ruby speaks to her later on, she actually, speaks to her for a bit and like she dismisses her, but it isn't an instant block, you know?
Yeah, no, that is definitely something that pick, unfortunately picked up a lot more on the second watch, and it took me a second watch to pick that up because addressing it now, I really struggled with the visuals of the dot and bubble itself, which I know no one else has complained about, but
But
this,
Robin, it
yeah.
makes it no
Mhm.
less valid than what you experience. That it makes it no less valid if you not to speak for you, but it was a case of overstimulation, wasn't it?
It, thank you, Jack. I really appreciate you saying that right now. I've felt a bit awkward about bringing this up because I didn't want people just to say that I was just making up stuff or the like. But this last year, I've had a bit of damage to the back of my eyes where the muscles are. So focusing on things, especially trying to focus on central points for a long time, my eyes begin to blur a bit. And so for something that is lots of different people moving across the screen, people coming in and out, and then on top of that, them talking, her talking, and especially later on when it's the music in the background playing, and you've also got forward, forward. It was very overstimulating, and fortunately, those things calm down a lot more by the time she gets into her office and works. But all of that at the very start was
Sorry.
very
Air quotes
overstimulating.
works.
Work.
She
Oh my
works.
God.
Oh, the way she's like, it's what we do. We work for 2 hours and then we play, and it's like, I just every little thing that she said about it just made me hate her more. And I was like, yeah, I know she probably doesn't know any better, but then obviously it comes out more and more and more. And
Mm,
I think I missed it the first time. I can't exactly pinpoint the exact moment. I know it was before the end. I sort of realized with Lindy that she was racist and the whole society was bloody racist. But It did. It took me a while. I think it was. I want to say it was probably. I don't know. I think the first thing I realized was that, hang on a minute, all these faces in this bubble are white. I think I
Yeah,
was like, okay, and that was the first sign. And then when the doctor comes back in, initially Lindy is like, she thought it was a different person because they, in this again, because in her head they all look the same. You know.
yeah, which is a ugh. It's I mean, the topic itself is always going to be absolutely awful and just deprived whatever time setting we get this in.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting because in the behind the scenes stuff with Russell T Davis, he discusses how when they were writing the episodes, yeah, you instantly think, oh, if they're going to have a episode that tackles racism, it's going to be in the past. Unfortunately, it's something that's still occurring, and why wouldn't it sadly take place in the future as well? And I think that is part of the I'm trying to think of the right word, like part of what makes the commentary of the social media aspects as well as
Hmm.
just these people being in their own bubble, like really add to that kind of narrative that they're telling in the story.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, exactly right. Yeah, and I think it's because Lindy is really horrible, like really, really horrible with it, and it's clear. And like part of you just thinks that she's a horrible character. That's just what she is, and it's just her being rude because she's kind of rude to Ruby as well, but not to the same level. And then when she's like, he's gonna be so disciplined for this, and I can't wait, to see him disciplined for it. But like, he's not as stupid as he looks, and it's like, and it all just adds up. It just piles up as you think about it, doesn't it?
Oh, when
It's
she was
and
just first calling both him and Ruby stupid, that was
mhm.
so infuriating me.
Oh, and I'm like, love, you can't fucking walk without your bubble. You're the stupid. And that is, I'm sorry, that's perfect commentary right there for a racist, because to be bigoted, you need to be fucking stupid. You need
Mm,
to be. So it was, it was very apt to make them that they can't even, they're so absorbed by their bubble, and they literally walk into these things and get killed. You know,
yeah.
they're so absorbed, they're so self-absorbed, and they're so fucking stupid in their bigotry, they can't even walk without these things.
It's yeah, I mean I do have like some opinions on that which sort of come up later in the episode. Like um it definitely adds to the fact that they are just clearly so stupid, so self-centered and stuck in these bubbles. And the fact that, oh my God, when they were like, oh yeah, we work for 2 hours and it's so difficult. It's like, fuck off. I
Yeah.
work retail. I have no sympathy for these characters. I had no sympathy already. Where's my Jason Voorhees? Where's my hockey mask wearing slut? Get them now.
It's important to note though, in that bit where the Doctor and Ruby are trying to get her to listen and directing her to go and do stuff, and she's like, she for a minute it's too much for her, and she's like, give me a hiding place. When she goes over and hides there, and she's about, a mummy paid for it, and I
Mm,
hate it so much. Like, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me whenever a grown up says mummy or daddy, like mummy paid for it, daddy paid for it. Like, I'm just like, just kills me, And obviously, we have a video of her mum pop up, and there's always a Susan twist, Robin,
mm.
because there she is, and it's really interesting because I'm going to do this bit very quickly because I feel like it's the least important part of the episode, even though it's the breadcrumbs. The Doctor and Ruby actually recognizing her and going, "Oh, hang on, yeah, let's put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later." But
I'm I'm very interested in that because it's just like, is fair trade something that's going to sort of reappear in the series? Like, is this the same woman? Is this a woman who has like constantly having new iterations of her character
yeah,
throughout the years? Like this.
has she done a Clara Oswald and have time splitters all
Yeah.
through time, which I hope not. But I guess we'll see what that is. But yeah. So yeah, obviously Lindy's bubble or dot runs out of battery because we usually charge it at work. You're all so stupid. I'm so stupid.
Oh, yeah. And yet they still
And
have battery problems in the future. Like some
yeah,
things never
I know,
change.
right? And then obviously she meets up with Ricky September then, who shows her, how to get past these man traps, and they get into the was it building 55 or station 55 they're supposed to get to, and she can recharge her dot. He can try and phone the home world. Obviously, it's funny because Ricky September is presented to us as to be like the best version of one of these people on this part. He does his video and then posts it, and then he doesn't, and he switches his dot all day and he reads books and he does this. I've seen so many people like stan him, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
same.
no, like you're missing the point. He's there. He's also part of Fine Time. He's a fucking rich kid. He's a fucking racist too.
So like the first watch, you're kind of like, yes, he's like one of the character that you can actually root for and the like until you sort of get at the end and a wee watch and you're like, oh, like he's still very much going to be the groundskeeper from that one Secret Garden parody in Community. Like I just imagine him having the tattoo on his chest and all. I completely stole that from someone on Twitter. I wish I could credit them, but
No,
it's
but no,
just
it's
like,
true.
oh,
I suppose there's an argument to be had there that with him and the way he sort of presents himself, that people might be able to say that maybe he would have put his prejudice aside and listened to the Doctor and Ruby. But we can't say that because the twat gets a dot right through his head as he deserves. So,
like, I feel like we need to sort of slightly go back a bit because I find the designs of these slugs to be great. Like when I first saw the behind the scenes stuff with the slugs, I thought, okay, I'm not entirely sold on them. Like they're interesting, but I wasn't
yeah,
sure
it
how
was
they were going to be a threat.
it was one of the first things we saw when filming began, because obviously this episode in 73 yards began filming sort of before Shooty even like properly came on the production, because he was still filming Sex Education at the time. The final scene of this episode where he deals with the racism is his first scene filmed in this
Wow.
series before even Ruby Road. Obviously, he filmed the giggle and stuff before this, but this was his first scene in his season of Doctor Who, and it's
That's crazy.
so charged. It's so, you can see straight away that I think maybe another actor might have faltered. This was their first scene as the Doctor, but it's something amazing. I know we're skipping ahead, and we should skip back to what we're talking about there. But yeah, it's just
Oh, it needs to be said. I
yeah,
100% agree with you. What I think is great about the slugs is not only are they like so oof, like raise the hairs on you, sort of like creepy when you sort of get close to them. You see all those sort of antennas and hairs, and it's really gruesome how people are dying. Like that one guy's lying on the floor, like he's coming out the dot and bubble. He's realizing what's going on. He's just screaming. Like, oh, there's something about seeing people getting eaten alive, which
yeah.
I'm just really
There's that
squeamish
bit,
about.
isn't there? There's that bit in when Lindy's in the office. And it's already terrible enough. It's terrible enough that we figure out that on this day, this has been happening for weeks. People have been disappearing, and no one's fucking noticed. It's the bit, she sat at her desk there, and she looks through the bubble, and we see the slug just eating the person that sits next to her, and we just see like that. It's
Really
just their
quite
legs.
visceral, yeah.
Yeah, and well, there's very visceral stuff in this episode. We'll get to that again later on as well, but it's such a cracking design. It's one of the first things we saw when filming started, and people were like, "Oh, the slugs, they're kind of cute." And then we were like, "Oh my god, what's going to happen with the slugs? This is going to be weird." And then it turns out the slugs were the good guys all along.
It's it's really like fascinating because behind the scenes stuff, you thought, oh, the slugs, how they threat, they're probably slow and the like. You could just run away from them, shoot them, whatever. But they
But
fit
that's
so
the point,
perfectly
isn't it?
in the
Yeah,
story. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
that's what I think is great. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, which makes them so great, is that they do not take away from the evil, which are the true villains of the story. And that is these racist people. Like,
Mhm.
because they don't say anything, because they don't like become too much of a focus of the story, we focus on like the true like horrors of the story, which is not these alien creatures that are killing people, which in its own way is absolutely awful, but it's actually the awful acts that these people are saying and
Mhm.
taking, which you're just like, oh, I guess you could say that they were the true monsters all along, which, yeah.
Yeah. If only there was if only there'd been a character called Agatha, we could have been like, it was Agatha all
All
along.
along. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really powerful episode.
Mm,
Really, really is. So it's a great one to unpack as well. Going back to the episode itself, obviously we have the reveal that the home world, as they call it, is the population is zero and there's slugs everywhere, which I suppose it could. I've heard people say that could have been a plot hole because you would think that the whole point of them going to find time is that it was all the racist people paying to go there, and on the homeworld there would have been people of color as well. But I don't know. I don't really want to unpack this world anymore because I feel fucking disgusted by it. You know?
yeah, I think it's very much like 73 Yards, where there's certain bits of the story in which you don't need an answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you don't need to know who set up the fairy circle. You don't need to know why they are slugs in both locations. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can have a bunch of
Yeah.
different narratives in your head as
I
to
mean, we just
why
we, we
that's the
we know
case.
why there's slugs in both locations because everyone is obsessed with these dots and bubbles.
Mm,
Everyone is, even the old people must be. The stinky old folk, as Lindy says that it's anyone over 27 is a stinky old folk. Robin, I wear that badge with honor. I am a stinky old folk. So are you.
damn straight, damn
Yeah,
straight after this lot. Like,
yeah.
oh my God, there's a couple of moments in this which made me unintentionally laugh out loud, like
Mhm.
just because of how just to precision it was. It's like it's the moment where she finishes her walk past the four slugs, like following it's
Rick,
Ricky, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Ricky September. Yeah,
Yeah, like following Ricky's voice. And it's like she's holding his hand and she's like, oh, this is like the best day of my life. And it's him just turning and being like, there's still thousands of people being eaten alive. And
yeah.
I cracked open
Coming back to
laughing
yeah,
just
it's funny actually. She says that that's her first hug when she hugs Ricky September,
Mm,
which is a weird kind of parallel with Space Babies because the Space Babies had never been hugged,
mm.
and there's this. It's just a weird thing I picked up on. It's nothing really thematically. I was just like, oh, that's kind of interesting there, and then we come to the scene down in the but it's basically in the basement, isn't it, in the bunker where they've got to get through this one
Yeah, yeah.
door, and the doctor and Ruby kind of like have a they're like she's like what is it? Lindy's I'm with Ricky September, and they're like, and the doctor's like, he's hot, and the doctor and Ruby turn to each other and go, back off, and I'm like, I love that,
Yeah.
and then the ball turns around and you can see Ruby like putting her hair behind her ear and being like, oh. It's kind of it's cool that and they're like he's like hi, he's getting on with stuff and putting the numbers in, and then that's when the doctor realizes that. Did you realize they were going alphabetical, or did you think I thought,
No.
I'll tell you what, I thought it was like subscribers or like friend count. They were doing like the
That's what I
loneliest
thought.
person going up.
Like
Yeah.
that's what I thought because Ricky has such a high number count, and
Mhm.
if you look at hers, she's also got like I think roughly 3,000.
Yeah.
When you look at because she's got that one friend who's like, oh, have you seen so and so? Like they're missing, and she's like dismisses them. He only had
Mhm.
like a subscriber count of 300, and I
Yeah.
thought looking back, like, oh, that would make sense. It's the lower the number, it's clearly the less tasty, and then leaving
Mhm.
the main course for last. So I'm rewatching it. I guess I pick up on it a bit more. Like the names are so quirky in their own way that it's so
Mm.
like you have to really listen
Oh
out
no,
for the
the
name.
names are so fucking insufferable,
Mm.
aren't they?
It's
Like,
it's it's
oh,
it's very Hunger Games, isn't it? Like that's
it's
it's the
just
colors as well. Yeah.
yeah. I just like
Mm.
all of that. It just screams that like again. It does scream of the rich kids with a mummy and daddy, pay for everything for me.
It's the way as well that like oh my God, like the fact that not only is it like really horrible seeing people being eaten alive by these things, which is in itself awful,
Mhm.
but we get like one of the most grisly implied deaths in Doctor Who with
No, no,
Ricky's headshot.
it's not implied. It's you see it go through his head.
That's so it's like I've watched it twice, and the first time I saw it, I thought it was straight up blood. The second time I realized it's just the red light, but it's just like, God damn. And the first time I watched it, I let out this kind of exasperated, like, ooh,
Mm.
like that. Ooh, I did not expect that.
Oh, and it's
Like,
such a fucking like we already pretty much don't like Lindy at this point, but we think, oh, okay, maybe we'll be turning a corner here. But this like the way she sells out Ricky, the way she sells him
in
out there
instant.
just to save her fucking skin. And again, it is such it's a horrific. I want to. I think it's the most visceral death we in Doctor Who we've seen. I generally I can't believe that we got away with it. It kind of harkened back to World Enough and Time. When the guy shoots Bill and then we pan down and we see the hole in Bill from the back,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is such a great shot, but obviously it was I couldn't believe it. And then we get to that scene and it's already very clear. Because as soon as Lindy gets there, she instantly tries to ignore the Doctor and Ruby. Like she kind of
Oh,
just
they
kind of blanks them
know.
and just goes, you
They
know.
know
Part
completely what's
part
happened.
of me thought, oh, it's just because she's trying to hide from him from that. But then obviously it is the racism as well. She's just like, because she's so like he's when they go to talk to her, she's like so annoyed by them talking. And then her friend comes over, and the other guy who's insufferable is like, I guess you don't have a leader, but I'm putting myself forward. We're gonna go out there into the world and have a fucking gap year and fucking shit. And you just see this annoyance on her every time the Doctor turns around or like tries to speak to her. She's like
Mm.
cringing at it, and he's like, look, I can save you. I've got this box called the TARDIS behind me. And he goes into all the stuff. And you just see the looks on their faces. And I think it's really interesting in that moment because I think Ruby picks up on it before the Doctor. I
Mm.
feel like Ruby's trying to console him and before he even realizes, because I think he's got, like any of us would have, he's worn the face of a white person for over 2,000 years at this point, you know? So he's got 2,000 years of white privilege right there, and it's this realization that oh no, he's a black man now, and it's Lindy has those lines where she's been like we can't go you in your box there, on the screen was all right, and you were kinder, you helped me though it was your duty, because you know
Mm.
you're not the
Yeah.
same as us, and it's all that horrible vitriol that comes out again. It's that fucking bigoted, disgusting, horrible vitriol, and I think it's that's we realize it's the Doctor's realization is that moment when he's like, when he's like, he almost laughs and goes down onto himself, and then he goes, damn.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful reaction.
Oh,
I think
that spit take. Yeah.
mm,
It's
that's the
so
moment.
good.
That's the moment it clocks for him, I think. So again, it's after Ruby gets it, and you can see Ruby is just, she's disgusted by the whole thing. She's really like, Ruby's really hurt for it as well. You know, obviously the Doctor is the one actually experiencing the racism, and that's important to say there. But it's deplorable. But Shooty's performance there is, and considering again it was his first, it's the first
I
thing he did
cannot
on this
believe that.
series.
Yeah, like what a thing. Because I have to say right now, I think this moment, if we look back at Shooty's top 10 moments in Doctor Who, this your Watch Mojo video Vine or whatever it is, like this is going to be up there. Like it's such a powerful piece. And not only is it a powerful piece with him as a performer who we knew was wonderful, but this being his first proper sort of take as the Doctor in this season and him giving it him his all. You can tell with the way that they're looking at her when she comes down the ladder, like a part of them knows what has happened and they just kind of want her to admit it. That's what I feel. But that's still that quality of the Doctor is like, I can tell these people have suffered enough. I want to save lives regardless of these despicable people. I want to be like the person that puts my foot down and be like, no, I want to help you. I want to do what's right, even though you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that they turn it back on him, throw it in his face, and you see all these little realizations in his face, like this kind of disbelief that they would choose these bigoted
They are
beliefs over their
basically
own
choosing,
lives.
they are choosing death over, they're choosing death over safety, over being saved because of their bigotry. And it's,
And
again, I'll say it again, just proves again that bigots, racists, you're fucking stupid.
I a part of me just wanted like one of the slugs to just suddenly drop into the middle of the boat and just start killing people.
Yeah.
I swear, it probably sounded very dark in some of these videos. Like last
No,
week,
eat
I
the
had it
rich,
where I
eat the
just
rich, eat the
oh
rich.
yeah, like last week
Get rid of
I
the
wanted old
racists. Fuck the
Ruby
bigots.
to just snap the neck of Mad Jackman. This week, I want the slugs to
I'm
jump on the boat.
I'm magic. I'm so mad.
Oh, but
Yeah, no.
it's such a powerful scene. Like Shooty's like spit take when he shouts out, "Damn!" Like, it's it's yeah.
I do
It's
want to very
great.
quickly, because we're rocketing towards the end here in our rating and stuff. I want to point out two little things to you very quickly, Robin. First of all, the music is so beautiful in when they're
Oh,
getting on
Mother
the boat.
Goad is slaying.
Yeah. Did you notice though, in the minute when they get on the boat there, there's a reference to the long song back from the 11th Doctor, like the I didn't even notice that much.
No.
It's so like there's just that motif is just there, and I'm really interested. I'd love to pick Murray Gold's brain. He'd be like, "Why did you like include that little bit there?" You know, like it's really interesting. And can I also just say, this is my favorite 15th Doctor costume. Straight
This
up.
this was like the first costume we saw him.
This was the reveal. We saw him. We finally seen it in this episode, and we might not see him in it again. You know, we saw him in this costume with the hat on back in Ruby Road, but this might be the only time we see it, and it's. I think it's really disappointing because I think it's the most doctory look for him. You know, like the typical one. You know, I know they're doing something different. They're having him wear something different every episode, and I love that. I love that. That's his style. You know, they could, to quote people working on the show, he could wear a bin bag and it'd work. You know.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh, damn straight.
you know, and don't get me wrong, I think his Ruby Road outfit and Space Baby's ones are also, with the long coat is amazing, gorgeous. I love it. I can't help but look at this and just think, God, I'd love to see him in this a bit more. You know?
It's it's so good, and like those original reveals of the costume and then seeing it in film, like on the screen, like with the lighting and everything, it just stands out so much with the bright orange and the
Mhm.
patterns. Like it's such a good compliment to like they all complement each other so well. And again, Shooty Gatwa can wear anything and he'll rock it.
Mm.
He is a handsome man. Handsome. Oof.
Beautiful,
Um,
beautiful man. Absolutely.
and the Mara Go theme as well. It's so like oh, it's just it whelms you up with so many emotions right after that. That them choosing death over safety. This
Mhm.
like it's an ending to a story, and like, well, they survived. Shouldn't this be a happy ending? It's like, well, is it? Is it
It's
happy
not,
that
is it?
these are the people that survive? And it's oh yeah.
It's a very powerful episode. And again, I can't find the word to describe my I can't find the word to describe my viewing of it because I think it's a powerful episode. I think it is a good episode. I think it is a fant- I think it's a fantastic episode of Doctor Who. I just can't say that I can't say it's enjoyable. I can't say that
No.
it's, in the same sort of way. I think it speaks to how excellent this series is that we have yet another just banger episode, genuinely, in my opinion.
Okay.
I feel like I would give this one, if I was rating it, I'd go an 8 or a 9. Genuinely.
Okay.
I think it's a brilliant episode. It's not wonderful. I'm not saying that because this feature is it's bleak. It's bleak to think of this, The honestly, the best thing that I can latch onto it is that yay, the slugs get to feed, the slugs get to eat the rich. Yay, slugs are the best. But no, yeah, it's a hard watch, isn't it?
It is a very hard watch. I think the themes that it brings up are very important themes to discuss and bring up. I think they've handled it very well, at least from my perspective. And when I was speaking to my fiance and how she felt from the episode, she felt that they handled it very well as well. Um, I've watched it twice now, once on my own, once with Christine, and um, discussing it. We both kind of agreed that while there was a lot of really strong points for the episode, we wouldn't necessarily rewatch it. It's not a comfort episode. It's not
Mm,
an episode that you take solaces, and I don't think it needs to be that
mm,
episode. I think this is an episode with a very powerful message. It doesn't not every Doctor Who message episode is meant to have you fist bump the air and be like, yeah, the Doctor saved the day. Yeah, the Doctor beat the monster because, well, the Doctor certainly didn't beat these monsters. But
no,
like,
they sailed away.
yeah, true. Um, and I was thinking this has been a very difficult episode for me to digest. Like
Like a slug.
just like a slug, yes. I was wondering whether to go for the pun or not, and I realized when I said it out loud, I was like, oh, I've said it anyway. Because for me, obviously, this character is meant to be a truly horrible, despicable character, but for them to be the focus point of the story, the character that you're following throughout, for me, it's not an enjoyable watch for you to have to follow the perspective of this character who already at the very start, I really, really hated all the kind of the dialogue they were saying, as well as the personality. And a part of me, when I first watched, was like, okay, she's like this right now because she's going to have her arc. She's going to become a better person. Definitely not after what she did to Wiki. At that point, it's like, no, you could just die horribly now. Come on, just all the slugs, just tear her apart now, limb from limb. Just have that be even more visceral.
Just
But
Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and
just give the slug a hockey mask. I'm saying, it's perfect. They'll slowly get you, but they'll eventually get you.
they just bust through the wall like the Kool-Aid man, just like, oh yeah,
oh yeah. But I think the parts of this episode which are great are superb. I think that whole ending with Shooty is already up there, like as one of my top 10 moments with this Doctor. Like, it's so powerful. The score is great. The coming together of the themes and everything, I think, are great. When I have to rate this, I'm gonna give it a lower score, and the score is based on the fact that if I'm looking at these episodes back to back and thinking, what would I enjoy watching more? I think I'd enjoy watching Space Babies more than this, which I already gave a low rating, but I don't think it's lower than that rating that I gave it. Like I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10, which is not to say that it's a bad episode or anything. It's just I think to follow such an insufferable character for so long makes it very difficult to get to an ending which is superb and justified, but it's just that journey getting there which makes it a difficult rewatch.
I suppose what I'd say to that is it speaks to what Doctor Who has done time and time again, is that sometimes the wrong people survive. You
Mm,
know, sometimes it's what it is. But no, I think you don't have to justify yourself. That's your rating. That's what it is.
mm.
I tell you what, Robin. Let's stop talking about some of these disgusting, fucking racist people. Let's move on to some chat about some lovely people. Because let's go over to our dear listeners, our space time telegraphs.
Okay, first, before we do Space Time Telegraph, didn't do it last week because I don't actually know. I really don't know what happened last week. I am so sorry. But I'm back this week for Stars Corner. So, Dot and Bubble. Honestly, there's not much I can say that Jack and Robin haven't already covered. I mean, it was a very well handled episode. It definitely isn't an enjoyable episode, but that's the point. It's meant to make you feel different things from a normal episode. You're meant to feel this sense of anger at the end. You're meant to feel outraged for the Doctor. You're meant to hate these white privileged rich upper class bitches. And that's me putting it lightly. This whole episode, it's very well laid out in terms of what you're meant to feel. You hate the rich because they're classist, racist, just generally quite stupid. They're not very likable. Even Ricky, which, as mentioned, a lot of people were like, "Oh, Ricky's great," but with the way the system on Find Time works, and how I imagine it happened on Homeworld as well, the whole society is built on classism and racism and stuff like that. It is built on that. The Dot and the Slugs were right. That's it. Team Slug. Or Team Mantrap, sorry. But yeah, no. Other than that, I don't feel it's my place to really give a rating on it. I think I would give advice this week instead of a rating. And that advice would be talk to people of color about what they thought. Their opinions matter more than ours in this matter, because it handles an issue that's more personal to them. I think it's something that we need to really be talking with them about, not just getting the white person view. God, this is a really difficult episode to talk about because it's genuinely so harrowing and disgusting. Like it's well done. I mean, the only criticism I might have is I think a person of color should have been in the writing room with RTD. I think there should have been like a joint thing, perhaps. But aside from that, I think it was pretty well done in terms of what it was wanting to put out, and I think it handled a lot of what it was trying to do quite well. But again, I'm white. I really don't think I have a view on this. So what I would recommend is look at what people of color are saying. I was watching before doing this. I was watching reaction videos because I'm someone who likes that. I like watching people react to the new episodes. I like seeing what people thought as the episode is going on. And I specifically made a point to make sure the reaction videos I watched this week were from people of color, just to grasp their views. And it's really interesting because there's quite a variety. And I'm not going to say any further. I think it's something people need to research themselves. But it's definitely a case of it's a mixed viewpoint, and I would say talk to people of color. That's all I really have to say on it. Whew. Should not be doing this at 1:45 in the morning. Yes, again, you find Editor Star in night mode. Anyway, back to the space-time telegraph thingy-majig. I like saying thingy-majig. Thingy-majig's a good word.
Okay. The very first one I'm going to bring in here is from James York, a friend of the show, friend of ours as well, the queer doctor himself. James here says, regarding the episode, he says, a story that should be studied, a story that is what we need in this climate, a classic in the making. Very strong words there, and I'm inclined to agree. I've said it. I said it to the director of this episode. I said, both this and 73 Yards need to be studied like short films. Like they need to be taught in universities in terms of how to make great TV. Heading over to the Twitter now. I put on Twitter, as I usually do, please just let us know what your thoughts are on the episode. Jude, friend of the show, at Pig and a Tea Break, says, incredible episode that delves into white privilege and the effect it can have in the ways that it blinds you to racism. She's on top form with his performance and definitely better on a rewatch. Would have been better at an hour, but hey, that's the same of most episodes so far. I can agree with that. I can definitely I think that my main criticism of the episode so far this series, and even though I've not really spoken about it, is probably the runtime. I feel that certain episodes could have done with a bit more in them, and I definitely think that Space Babies and The Devil's Cord, it's very clear that there are cuts in that episode. I'd say less so. I'd say less so with Boom. Maybe there could have been a bit more to 73 Yards, but definitely with this one as well. I think there's some gold that might have been left on the editing room floor there, but still. Next one comes from another friend of the show, You're in the Shadow Master, at British Shadow GG. Where to start? I should really hate Lindy for how she acted throughout the episode, especially towards Ricky and the Doctor. Yet I was engaged once more throughout. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Robin. I think not Robin, sorry, Ewan. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you're engaged by the episode, you've already said how deplorable she is. So it's fine. He also says powerful acting from Shooty when he fails to save those who are racist towards him. Top tier. Okay, agree with that. Cool. Next one comes from the onest of nerds at 11nerd. I really, really loved Dot and Bubble. It's everything that I wanted from Doctor Who doing Black Mirror. I love the slugs, and after watching the episodes, I love them even more. That's fair.
Eat the witch.
Eat the witch. We have got a couple emails as well. One which I will play to you later on because it's from Catherine Wheeler. First one comes from friend of the show, George Guidra, who is every fan Doctor under the sun. George says here, first of all, hi Robin and hi Jack, aka Best Buddy. The whole episode felt very Black Mirror, and I didn't find it interesting having the stories protagonist be someone very unlikable who doesn't learn a lesson at the end. I love the slugs and pray we get a slug plush and figure soon. Oh my god, yeah. We're still waiting on meat figures. Where's my meat plush? Where's my meat plushie, Robin? I'm waiting on this fucking screwdriver. Where's my 15th Doctor screwdriver? Where's my action figure?
Where's the Build-A-Bear? Come on, Build-A-Bear, do it.
Yeah, Build-A-Bear meat. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you press a button, the eyes flash red, so it turns evil. Love it. And he goes like, "Oh, to hell with this!" He says they were great alien designs. They took Eat the Rich to a whole new level. They absolutely did. Shooty and Millie did amazing despite the limited role they had, and watching 15 at the end get treated the way he did broke me. I know there is a lot of debate how the racism aspect was handled, and having seen a lot of people pointing out subtle things that build up the ending, I definitely think the story will be one that benefits from multiple viewings. This story went from one I thought would be a cringy story to one that I will certainly remember. Love, George. Thank you so much, George. Lovely there. I think that's important there to talk about, and I do think if I'm gonna throw one large piece of criticism Russell's way right now, and it's a similar thing which I can throw shade at him for the Star Beast, which is did a trans person look over the Star Beast script, and did a person of color look over this script? Because it's very telling that I know they've said that it's going to change in future episodes, but or in the next series, but I think it's rather telling that I don't know. I think it's a bit, they're there. Russell's there trying to preach to us that we should be looking at this, and if we haven't noticed that all of Lindy's friends are white, and that we're part of the problem. Russell, your writer's room is looking very white this season. We got our first Doctor of color leading the show. Probably would be better to have had a black voice in that room. I'm just saying.
Yeah, completely, because they would have so much difference in upbringing and beliefs and just their own experiences that they could lend to the table. And actually, just having someone of that color, of that voice in the room is so important. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. Next one comes from friend of the show and usual voice note sender in, Catherine Wheeler.
Hello, podcast listeners. It's me, in with a non-mastery review this time, because it's a bit more of a nuanced episode. My initial reaction was that I thought from the start it was a bit like, okay, Gen Z, written by a boomer. If you sort of look at it at a very surface level, it didn't quite work as an episode for me, but I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun, and at the end, obviously the point it's building up to, I picked up on it, but I didn't know if they were going that way. I guess I was a bit confused whether they were going for that or whether they were going from the racism viewpoint or from a classism viewpoint, and having it confirmed to me on Unleashed was kind of like, oh, okay, right, okay. I think, like, obviously, my opinion is not the one opinion to rule them all, and there's literally nothing on the conversation, but I feel like maybe it gave people a cop-out to take it as a classism thing and not a racism thing. So to have that clarified in Unleashed for me was a bit like, oh, okay, it wasn't just like a classism metaphor that was written that way. It was that. So, like, I don't know what to say. Did I like it? Did I dislike it? It kind of doesn't matter. But yeah, hopefully people are having nuanced conversations about this. Bye all. Bye.
And if that wasn't enough Catherine Wheeler for you, she sent a part 2 as well.
Hi, I'm back. Sorry, I had more thoughts. It makes me slightly concerned for Shooty. Obviously, I'm not Shooty. But hopefully having such a scene as your first scene as the Doctor, because obviously he'd shot scenes in the Giggle, but this was the first of his episodes in the filming block. I just hope that he felt comfortable with it, and that there was, I don't know, I think there's always a concern that, do you have black writers even near the writer's room who look at the script, who work on the script? Like, this is his first scene, and I know they said they went back and forth on it in Unleashed, but I don't know, I just hope that he was able to voice anything if he wanted to, because it's such a, it's like, I don't know, if Jodie had started filming her era with a scene about sexism, it's a really tough thing to do, even as an actor. So, yeah. My second thoughts are, I hope the guy is okay, and he was okay with it, and, you know, as much was done as could be. Anyway, bye again.
Thank you, Kat, as always. Yeah, some very important points there, I think, that Kat's saying there again, echoing what we were saying there as well, how it's maybe important that Shruti gets a writer of colour writing for him soon. So fingers crossed on that, you know. Unfortunately, Robin, no Mad Beach this week. No Mad Beach to send us a lovely essay. But that's all right, because we're going to take a moment now to move on over to your tasty morsel, Robin. Here's your after dinner mint. It's your Cannon Buster.
Yay!
Actually, Jack, you thought Thomas wouldn't be in this episode? Well, let me show you the power of editing. I have the email. Yes, it was too late for the main recording, but by using my wonderful talents as a voice actor, and the fact that I can literally just read it off the screen and add it in now, I'm just going to do that. But first, I need to quickly ask, David Tennant, how many pages are in this email?
2.47 billion.
Oh. Better get started then, eh? Hello, Jack, Robin, and Star. Here I am continuing the streak of my reviews. Red heart emoji. Dot and Bubble was very, very conflicting to me and my mum. There's so much to unpack, especially with the heavy subject matter and themes present. So I'll discuss the technical aspects firstly, just to get into the swing of things. I adored the visuals of this story. The pop pastel colours and bright funky energy instantly set the tone that this was going to be unlike something seen before. Well, perhaps not, but that'll come later. The claustrophobic cinematography was incredibly effective, locking us to Lindy almost all episode, forcing the audience to be trapped in Lindy's bubble, especially when you found her as insufferable and as vapid as me and my mum found her. The soundtrack again was practically stellar. Gold's work incorporating the TikTok vibes was sickeningly on point, but with the incredible eerie screech undertones left me on edge despite all the niceness. The screech motif actually reminded me of the score from the first Dalek serial, and elements from the Happiness Patrol and the Macro Terror, but not the Macro Terror because they don't exist, as we all know. Also, 15's inverted theme at the episode's conclusion was just incredible. It was punctuation to such a hard-hitting scene, a hard-hitting performance from Ncuti. It felt like a theme for a series finale. It's possibly my favourite rendition of the 15th theme. Perhaps my only negative with the soundtrack was the inclusion of the Yellow Bikini song. Yes, it's an earworm. Yes, it's cheesy. But I don't think it matches the world that's presented here. Would teens from the year 500X be into this song? Or is it just Lindy's favourite? That wasn't made clear. I'm inclined to think it's just one of Lindy's favourite songs as she's into retro outfits, etc. But even then, there could have been more of a gag here with making a current song retro, similar to Britney Spears' Toxic being an old earth ballad and the end of the world. I'm also a bit miffed to Yellow Bikini being kept in, but Push the Button by the Sugar Babes was cut for time. It's very odd this series what's been cut for time over others. Now, in terms of characterization and acting, this was an engaging watch. It was an incredible gamble to, again, have such a small cast of characters leading the story. Having it be kinda doctor and companion-like was an interesting choice. I say kinda, as yes, they're present on the screens and make a significant appearance at the end, so perhaps this is more akin to Blink on the scale of Doctor-like episodes. Kaylee Cook's Lindy Pepperbean was incredible to watch. It speaks so much to her talent as an actor that I despise this character so much. She embodied all the vapid, fake, rich kid TikTok obsessive that I hear all the time on my sister's phone. The language and the mannerisms were so perfectly replicated from almost all the cast here that it set me on edge. But that's the beauty of it. It was effectively done, perhaps too effectively. I'll explain later. Callie's physical acting was also just remarkable. Her inability to walk had me chuckling as it was pretty much a mirror to my little sister who can't see 2 feet ahead of her without her phone in her hand. It also feels rather too specific to just be a gag. I do genuinely wonder if people struggle to walk without their phones, either in their hands or having their face in them. Is that something Russell researched, or is that a joke that perhaps has opened some horrifying implications? Yet again, Ncuti and Millie were fabulous. Despite the limiting factors of being in a confined square of the screen, they play off each other brilliantly. Love the iconic lines from Ruby, it's like Planet Love Island, and the Doctor nodding at that. Hilarious! I adore the little moments between the two. It really cements the friendships on screen and off for me. Also, the reveal with both of them in the room together was just brilliant. Ncuti just diving across the screen behind Millie gave me Scott Pilgrim vibes. I can't fault their performances one bit, despite some of the written material being kind of off and perhaps ableist for my liking. Their joking comments about Lindy's inability to walk without a guide, the arrows, felt kind of mean-spirited, but I'm glad they apologised and worked with Lindy to accommodate her, even if that turned out not to be the best thing. But I've got to talk about the MVPs of the episode, the slugs, or mantraps as the Forbidden Planet merch has revealed. Honestly loved these guys, just pure, utter cheese. They look like something directly from the 60s, like the macro crabs, though they don't exist, or numerous bug-eyed monsters. I'll admit I couldn't stop cackling looking at these guys, and just the lack of effort and eating the teenagers was hilarious. They simply ate and left no crumbs, 10 out of 10, no notes. Even the low-resolution flash animation slug attacks and the bubble squares was so funny. It looked like something out of a 90s point-and-click adventure game, or a Doctor Who spin-off game on the BBC website. Just loved it. I almost felt bad for the slugs when they weren't the main villain of the episode, but the dots themselves. I don't know, it's a very interesting idea, but I felt it was a little too late to have made a genuine impact, except for one character death. Also, the power of the dot was very inconsistent. It could fly through metal piping, but not steel doors? It's here, however, where my thoughts on the episode get a little deeper. It's at this point in the story I completely turned against Lindy. Her dead naming of Ricky was genuinely repulsive and sickening. I felt there was a lot more going on. There was something really wrong here, but I still couldn't put my finger on it. We hit the final moments of the story and I was floored. I felt sick to my stomach. The citizens of Fine Time's rejection of the Doctor's offer to help hurt so much. Seeing such a passionate Doctor and Ncuti being spat in the face was awful. And my heart broke when he still wanted to save them despite knowing what they were, what their society stood for, and where it was inevitably going to lead. Now, onto the themes and story beats. This is going to be tough to discuss, I'll admit to you, Jack, Star, and Robin, fellow listeners. I was very nervous to discuss this very large, awful elephant in the room. This episode's approach to white privilege, echo chamber societies, racism, etc. I'm ashamed to admit this, but in first viewing I hadn't picked up on these themes. Even at the end, when it was the most obvious, I still fallen and followed the pretense of, oh, these are still just vapid rich kids. They're just being assholes because the Doctor's an outsider. It hadn't occurred to me, despite the language used in that their disgust, their hatred, their rejection was about the Doctor's skin colour. Something as simple and stupid and hateful as that. And I feel a pang of shame still about not picking up on that. Like I mentioned earlier, I felt while watching there was something wrong with all of this, seeing so many white people in the society, even appreciating the trans representation in the casting. But as a white cis-het man, I felt a sense of shame not having picked up on this, at least within the first viewing. It was after some digestion, pun intended, and reading up online from valid viewpoints and Twitter threads that these horrid aspects clicked, and the episode really changed for me. Upon my first viewing, I really despised this episode. It truly felt like Russell had written a Old Man Yells at Cloud story, but as a Doctor Who episode. I had fallen into the trap. I was taken in by the stereotypical TikTok personalities of the cast and the vapid on-surface exploration of social media and bubbles. As I said earlier, perhaps the performances were too good. Like, these aspects were too well masked, which led to the big conclusion being seen as a twist ending. This episode, unlike shows like Black Mirror, which explores technology's impact on society, felt like an exploration of an awful society enhanced by echo chambers and the horrid underbelly of influential racist and prejudiced personalities. This script, isn't really a criticism of social media and TikTok like I feared. This is a warning. This is a wake-up call. This is nightmare fuel. This is like our generation's Happiness Patrol, in which that story used bright colours and the Candyman as a veneer, a smokescreen for Thatcherism and terrors of a Tory government. By the way, register to vote, and please vote on July 4th, UK listeners. Even my allusions to the macro terror feel more and more valid, as again the daft monsters were used to explore the dangers of working for an unseen force, i.e. working class, being worked into oblivion for literal monsters. While this realization has been great for my views on the episode, I feel socially it's worrying. I've seen posts using this ending reveal as a litmus test of sorts. People saying if you don't get that they're all white and they're racist, you're racist, etc. Or using the ending as a gotcha moment to catch out people with white privilege, etc. I don't know. That feels like it's absolutely taken the wrong message from the episode. It feels incredibly mean-spirited and in bad faith from certain fans. Thankfully, those are in the minority, and I can only hope this episode opens some eyes for people as it did for me. Despite me being as open-minded as possible and as considerate as possible to as many people as I can, we can all do better. We can all widen our senses, drop our bubbles, so to speak, and not let our guards down. Final thoughts. This episode was a roller coaster of emotions. When watching and not watching it, it lingers in the mind. This episode has repulsed me in the way a scary story would. It's the kind of stories Doctor Who should always tell, to always light these dark areas of our society, even with the smokescreen of slugs or crabs or a candy man. It's the kind of story that should be studied and should be appreciated for years to come. Here's my rating. I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. Mum's rating, 8 out of 10. Now, a bit of a moment. On the last podcast, Jack made a choice in voice for Thomas's mum. I will not be replicating that. Much love to Thomas's mum. You're a good egg. Anyway, Thomas's mum's rating was 8 out of 10. A very thought-provoking story that needs time for a viewer to digest and look beyond the screen. Massive thanks to you three for inviting me to chat again. This was a very hard story to chat about, as I feared I would be stepping or talking over people with their own valid views on what this story explored. It's a story that's going to stay with me for a long time. A very, very long time indeed. It's going to take a lot to top this, I think. Thomas B. TBD Beach on Twitter. Lovely words there. Definitely agree on the fact that it's an episode that's going to stay with people, and I think conversations are going to be had about it for many years, and I think that's really important. I think that does matter. Yeah. Anyway, now that's done and dusted. It only took me about 4.5 billion years. Let's move on to the Cannon Buster.
Okay, so I've gone for something different this week, Robin. Usually I try to give you something outlandish, something terrible, or something to make you laugh. I've gone for something a bit more wholesome this week. Because I feel that with the episode's content and with also the news today of William Russell's passing, I thought I'd go for something nice. So, it's very important to remember that Ian was working at Coal Hill School back in 1963. So back in the 20th century. But as we know from an audio story called All Hands on Deck, both himself and Barbara were still remembered and still respected all the way into the 22nd century. Because Susan lives in a block of flats which Coal Hill had been converted into over 100 years prior, and there's an oak tree planted there in the memory of Ian and Barbara with a commemorative plaque there as well. So yeah, even years after Ian and Barbara pass away in universe, they're still remembered, and there's still a commemorative plaque there, which is something special, and an oak tree is there to represent them. And I think that's important to say there, that even though William Russell has left us, we will still remember him, and we will still respect and honour his contribution to Doctor Who. So, yeah, there's your Cannon Buster this week, Robin.
I think that's very beautiful and a very touching way to end this episode. I've only just started to get into a lot of the original classic Doctor Who stories, but their performance, their legacy that they've left behind for other companions to take note of, to realize what are the human qualities that these characters should bring to guide the Doctor, to help this alien have these kind of human aspects to them, pick up on what it is to be human. And I think that comes from being with these people, being with a teacher first and foremost, someone who's there to guide new generations and to help them know right from wrong. I always felt that he lended himself to every scene that he was in. He always had a presence, and I think it's nice to have a Cannon Buster which isn't something quirky or something funny, but something sweet and something beautiful. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah. Once again, thank you, William Russell. And I think that's an appropriate place for us to end this episode, Robin. Next week, we'll be talking about an episode I've already claimed as being my episode of Doctor Who. This is my episode going forward. This is as a man who loves Bridgerton so fiercely and burns for it. I burn for Bridgerton, Robin. You know, it is the bane of my existence and the object of all my desires.
Jack, I have to get out the fan to just stop my beating heart.
I'm looking forward to Rogue next week, and I tell you what, I have been Jack.
I have been Robin.
This has been an awful lot of running.
Keep
running.
running.
Goodbye, Doctor. Thanks for the ride. It was fun, Doctor. Goodbye.